Jujitsu Uncle here. And no, I am not a delivery guy for Jollibee, despite what my rash guard is saying. Our group of friends who are mostly from the Philippines made this silly Jolly BJJ semi-copyright infringing rash guard. It's just for our little internal group wherein we prioritize eating fried chicken over everything else. But anyway, I hope this poofy mic muff helps with the win. It's something we added today. And I know that we're back on a bike after last episode's indoor shot. Let me know which format you like better. I know if it's just an audio, you would prefer the one indoors, but for the video here on YouTube, let me know if you find the indoor stuff quite boring. But anyway, today's episode is about competitions. Why competitions? So why now? Why are we talking about competition all of a sudden? Well, we just had a tournament yesterday, Grappling Industries, held here in Singapore. And I think it's the first or second, no, I think it's the second event for them here. I'm not so sure. But majority of the people who join are mostly white and blue belts, especially in gi. There just weren't anybody almost doing gi at the higher belts except for a couple of black belts, if I'm not mistaken. But for no gi, it was more even. We had a lot more advanced folks, simply because the category for no gi in grappling industries involved purple up. So purple belts all the way to black belts are lumped into one. But it doesn't really matter because in no gi you're classified as beginner, intermediate, advanced, right? So if you deem yourself to be in the advanced as a white or blue belt, then go ahead. Nobody's stopping you. So the main point I want to cover in this video is really the difference between competitions and training and rolling. Why the two are not exactly the same. And I want to point out in this episode, so the main point of this episode really is highlighting and more of a reminder of how different it is training in the gym versus training for a comp. It is vastly different, especially if you are not in a comp gym or your gym does not have a consistent comp team. A lot of folks train and prep really well, really hard for a tournament. But one of the things that I reminded a lot of folks in the gym who's only competing for the first, second, third time, mostly first time, is that comp is very, very different. Not because of the stakes, not because of who you're rolling with, but more on the fact that you are in an environment where it's very, very, very different from your normal training ground. And those things are hard to prepare for if you're not a seasoned competitor. Some of the things that I want to highlight and that almost everybody experiences. Wait, I want to show you my friend. JC is my primary training partner, and we live like 5 minutes apart, so we try to bike to the gym if schedules allow. But anyway, going back to the topic, there are a couple of things that you can never replicate in the gym. Part of it would be adrenaline. Part of it would be practicing rule sets and strategizing for it, as well as time management and confusion. No matter how prepared you might feel that you have spent for the comp, if you're not a habitual competitor, I can guarantee you that all your strategies will relatively go out the drain once you start your matches. And if you don't have solid defense awareness, towards the end of every round, you will make a lot of mistakes, and that's where you get capitalized on mistakes. Now, that goes both ways, right? For yourself and your opponent. That's why preparing for comps at relatively lower levels, I'm not talking about belt, I'm just saying like levels in competition, is less of a factor than the higher level guys, because the higher level guys, they know who they're competing against. They already know what they're good at, what works against not just people in their gym. They've tested it in other comps almost every week. They visit other gyms and have tested the same systems with people who are willing to roll at that level as well, at that intensity as well. Because as casuals, no matter how hard we think we roll in the gym, it is still very different knowing that we have to take care of our partners, knowing that attack would simply mean a reset versus that's it, your match is over. There is a conclusion to that attack. The amount of spaz injected during a comp, I think regardless of level, will always be there. And you'll be surprised on how easy it is to forget the things that you thought you're really good at or you're really familiar with. Another thing is rule set. We have a gym friend who brings a topic into rule set in a lot of our training talks, and at first I thought, and shout out to Nick, in case you're listening to this, at first I thought, like, why do we always have to bring the topic of rule set in casual conversation? But ultimately he's right, because if your goal is to compete, short term or long term, if your goal is to compete, you need to know the rule set. You need to know everything you need to know that will give you an advantage, or at least not put yourself in a disadvantage. And understanding when points are being credited, how decisions are being made, how advantages and decisions are being made, what counts as a legitimate attempt to be awarded an advantage, what counts as a takedown, how is stalling penalties being implemented. Like, for example, at GI, stalling is a -2 point versus virtual slap in the wrist for IBJJF. The rule set for ADCC, for example, which benefits aggressiveness in the first couple of minutes, will dictate how you pace your rolls, how much effort you're going to put in at a certain time during the match. All of these things matter, and I think a lot of casual competitors do not pay attention to this at all. And unless you end the match, every single match, with a finish, there will always be an element of subjectivity from a decision point of view, from granting points or decisions. And this is not unique to BJJ, right? If you watch the NBA, people whine and bitch about calls every single time, 15, 20 times in a game. But you can simply say, oh, do not leave it out. Do not leave it to the refs, finish every match, blah, blah, blah. Easier said than done, right? I mean, it's not your call sometimes of whether or not a submission is readily available, depending who you roll with. So at least knowing the rule set helps in terms of minimizing your mistakes. And related to that is time management. Again, this is something that we don't practice in the gym simply because it doesn't matter what the timer says. If it ends, we reset until the 5-minute, 6-minute timer is up. But in a comp, it's different. The time is both your enemy and your friend. If you're down, it's your enemy. If you're up, it's your friend. You need to know and be familiar and comfortable with time and space awareness as to whether or not to get an unfair advantage. I wouldn't even say unfair because it's available for both of you. Advantage on the time aspect. If you guys have been battling for 4 minutes and finally you get a sweep and you're up by 2 and there's like 30 seconds left, it's actually strategically not very smart to try to go for a sub unless it's like guaranteed inescapable and just right there type of scenario. It'll make a lot more sense for you to hold side control, hold mount, or whatever, to maintain that lead and let the other guy panic and make mistakes and try to escape. Because if you think about it, if you're up by 2 and you're on top, at best that they can do is to sub you. If you take that out, the second tier of their possible response is to sweep you, and that still just evens the game up. And if there's 30 seconds left, those two things are very hard to do in a negative position. A lot of instances yesterday, particularly in the gi, wherein somebody could be up like 2 or 3 with like less than a minute left, and because they wanted to finish their sub from a mount, and they end up losing simply because they got reversed. They got burnt from trying to finish the sub, and they get past and they lose by a point or something similar. So just be mindful of that. And the last thing is about training partners and training style. Unless you are training in a no time limit type of match, understand that the typical strategy of wearing the other person out does not really come into play as much. We are not competing at the top tier levels where they're at it for 8 to 10 minutes or unlimited time until a sub comes in. We're in wearing somebody's abdominal muscles out or arm muscles out is an obvious game of attrition. This is not, if you're rolling for just 5 minutes and the first couple of minutes both parties are just trying to do a takedown or trying to get out of close guard, etc. Camping to wear the person out, it's not really going to help as much. I'm not saying it doesn't work, it just doesn't help as much from the purpose of tiring people out with your gravity, especially if the bottom person knows how to defend. So you have to practice with a different style if it's for a comp, because there should be an objective every single minute, every single second, where you want to pile up points, you want to pile up dominant positions and not give the points. If you're training in the gym, most likely you'll be like trying to hone your technique, trying to, lack of a better term, force a certain scenario to happen. But in a comp, it's a lot more difficult to predict what the other person's going to do. One, you don't know that person, so you don't know their rolling style. Two, again, sometimes it's just a bad matchup, right? So what works in your gym, simply because the other person, your gym mate, probably has a familiarity in how you roll, or just want to be cooperative, will probably let you finish something a lot more leniently than a comp scenario. And also another thing is the aggression, right? In a comp, people gank, people crank, people don't give a shit. And that is fair game. You're there to compete. You're not there to flow roll. You're not there to explore technique. So most of the time, people are not going to let go of a imperfect Doris or guillotine or leg lock. They're going to yank and crank that just to get the sub. Technique again, right? You don't get that in the gym environment often, so be aware of that. The other thing is the adrenaline dump. I told several people the same thing. No matter how many times you compete, the first match will always be relatively crappy, because it's hard to prepare for that first match, because you're going from high anxiety and expectations, but your body's not that ready yet. Your heart rate's not up yet. Your muscles are not fully heated up. We're not talking about warm up. It has to be heated up. Your lungs, diaphragm, etc., are not primed to provide the blood and oxygen that you need. And then all of a sudden, you're being thrown into a 0 to 100 match scenario. Your brain's going to be confused. You're going to be second thinking yourself on what to do. Everybody will be screaming at you from the sides, your coaches, your teammates, and everybody means well. And probably everybody's correct. But who do you listen to during that heat of the match? And can you absorb it? Can you even hear it? A lot of times people tunnel vision and everything just turns silent when you start rolling. And that is super common. So you need to train that as well in the gym to get used to listening to just one or two voices, understand how they talk, how they communicate, so that you can understand. Again, during comp, like yesterday, it was so common to hear coaches and teammates to tell somebody to just escape, escape, bridge him off. How? How exactly? That's not helpful. Cheering is different from coaching, so be mindful of that to know how to tune things out if you're in a comp scenario. Then again, all those things comes with experience, it comes with training. There's no way around it. That's just how it is. As you get better at it, as you get more in tune to what you can do, and be more confident of what you can do and what you cannot do, you'll be able to troubleshoot on the fly a lot better to deal with the environment that's in front of you, rather than trying to recall what you should be doing, because you don't have time for that. But comps are fun. I honestly think that if you're capable, just give it a try once. You might like it, and if you don't, it's fine. Just remember, at any given point that you feel at risk, you can always just tap. There's no shame in that. Nobody's going to remember whether you win or you lose a week after. Trust me. Do it for yourself. Do it for fun. Do it for self-discovery. And I can't wait to hear your first comp story. That's all I have for today. Give it to Uncle Dave out. Peace.